ASAP, baby.
Hello everyone, my name is Freya from 8C, and this is my final project. Enjoy! My story about how I got lost in Singapore. During the long holiday in 2019, my mother decided to go on holiday with me to Singapore. She also invited two of her friends to go on holiday together. I usually call them Uncle Danny and Aunt Chia, and also Aunt Chia brought her son so that I would have friends while there. We were in Singapore for 4 days, leaving on June 20 and returning home on June 23rd. My mother and I left early in the morning by car to go to Hussein Airport, accompanied by my grandfather, grandmother, and aunt. After about 20 minutes, my mother and I arrived at the airport. When I arrived at the airport, I saw Uncle Danny, Aunt Chia, and her son waiting there, and it turned out that Aunt Chia had also brought her younger brother to help her look after her son while there because her son was still a toddler. We waited about 30 minutes until we finally got on the plane. I sat next to the window because my favorite part is looking at the view of the sky. On the plane, I was very excited because the last time I went aboard was when I went to Thailand in 2015. After more than 1 hour of flight, we arrived in Singapore. Days 1 to 3 in Singapore went according to plan and were very enjoyable, especially on day 3 because at that time we went to a Universal Studio. While there, I went on a lot of exciting rides. My favorite moment was when I watched the Sesame Street show because at that time I liked Elmo. But something unexpected happened on the last day there. On the last day, we intended to spend time before going home by buying some souvenirs. We went from the hotel using the MRT. While in Singapore, we used the MRT several times as transportation and there were no problems. When we just arrived at the nearest MRT station from our hotel, an MRT train had arrived. When we saw that, we immediately walked quickly towards the train door. I was the first to get into the train, and when Uncle Danny was about to follow me in, the door closed and the train went straight ahead. Seeing this, I was very scared and confused. All I could do at that time was cry. At that time, the MRT train that I was riding alone was quite full, but no one cared about me. Everyone just busy doing their own activities. Some people just glazed at me for a moment and returned to focus on their cell phones and books. After 2 stops at the MRT station, a teenage girl entered the MRT train and sat not far from where I was standing and cried. After glancing several times and paying attention to me, she approached me who was crying in the corner near the door. She asked me several questions, but at that time, I still didn't really understand English. I only understood when she asked me why I was crying and where my parents were, but I didn't know how to answer it, and all I could do was shake and nod my head and point to tell her that my parents were outside the train and I was lost, separate from my parents. After she found out that I was a lost child, she called me down and accompanied me to the stop at the Orchard station and she was going to. She took me out of the train while holding my hand, then handed me over to the information center at Orchard station. After handing me over to the employee there, she immediately ran out of the station because it looked like she was late. At the information center, there was 2 officers who were luckily Malaysians. The 2 officers were very friendly. They gave me chocolate so that I felt calmer and could answer some questions so that he could declare me as a missing child so my mother knows where I am and can pick me up at this Orchard station. I answered all the questions they asked fluently because at that time I understood Malay better than English. After the officer found out my biodata, he announced it at various stations, hoping that my mother could pick me up. I waited for about 20 minutes at the information center until finally I saw my mother running to the information center where I was. Saying that, I said to the officer that it was my mother, and the officer opened the door. After the door opened, I immediately hugged my mother as tightly as possible, while crying again. My mother then calmed me down, saying that it's fine now, there's no need to be afraid. My mother and I thanked the officer for being pretty fine before we finally left there. It turned out that Osha station was our destination, so we didn't need to take the MRT anymore. After that incident, we continued our initial plan to buy some souvenirs. After buying lots of souvenirs, we took the time to eat first, and then we went to the airport by taxi. After flying for several hours, we finally all arrived in Bandung again. My family was waiting for me and my mother at the airport. None of my family knew that I had disappeared there because my mother kept it a secret. Until finally, after 1 month since I came home, my cousin invited me to go on a train to have fun. Hearing that, my mother didn't allow it because she remembered that incident. My grandmother then asked why I wasn't allowed to come, and finally my mother told her about the incident. This incident was one of my worst things in my life. I will never forget this incident for the rest of my life. This incident left a big trauma for me and also for my mother. But this trip to Singapore was also the best thing in my life. That's it. Thank you for watching my video.
Bye bye.